How's it going, everyone? It's Sam. We have an update on CleanSpark here today. They discussed their Bitcoin mining growth with Water Tower Research. This was actually a really good interview. The person interviewing did a good job. And I'd say Zach Bradford, the CEO that talked for CleanSpark here today, he has definitely been watching what investors have been saying. And he definitely hit on some of the massive concerns that investors have with CleanSpark. Now, if you don't remember, they had their earnings just a little while ago. I believe it was just last week, Monday, and they dumped 15% on this. So they've steadily fallen over the last couple months, all the way down to $10.40. Now, the last 2 days, they've actually done really well. They're up 6% today. They were up 17% yesterday. Both days, they've been outpacing Mara and Riot. And you can see, this is my video yesterday. I'll link on the end screen. You can see that they are much less expensive than Mara and Riot. They're about half to 1/3 as expensive. Now, of course, you have to look at their balance sheet. You have to look at how many miners they have and how much they paid moving forward. And there's a whole ton of different things to look at with Bitcoin miners. But just from a price to sales ratio here on what they are looking at in terms of hash rate in the next couple weeks, they are much less expensive. Now, I think we're starting to see a little bit of a rebalance, and that's why it's outpacing some of these other cryptos. But we're going to go through what they said in their Bitcoin mining update. And again, they answered some of the questions that a lot of people have right now. Now, I do want to say, if you guys want to support the channel, if you guys want to know what I'm buying and selling, we've made a ton of money in crypto. Now, we are seeing a little bit of a dip, but if you want to know what I'm buying and selling on a daily basis and join a group of other investors, there is a link down to the Patreon underneath the video. Try it out for a month, see if you like it. You can feel free to cancel it at any time. And then there is a link down there to Webull in case you want some free stocks, just deposit $5. And there's a link down there to Voyager. So Voyager is my other crypto stock that I really like. And you can try out the platform. They give you $25 worth of Bitcoin when you sign up and deposit $100 and start trading. So definitely check that out. They pay interest on 30 plus different cryptos. They just got uplisted to a new exchange. Check it out underneath the video if you're interested. But let's get into what they said here today. So we're just gonna break it down. First of all, they talked about just an update, right? They're still 80 to 85% margin. They're still at about 250K a day in profit. They said that they are right around 6 to 7 Bitcoin. So at today's prices, they're just over about $300,000 a day. Now they're still on pace for all the different numbers that they've given, whether it is the end of September or the end of the year. They're still on pace for 1 exahash by the end of the month, which is about a 20 to 25% increase. So that's good to hear, no pushbacks in the schedule. Then they said 1 exahash per second is right around the corner. So like I said, they're on schedule. That's good to see. Now, what did people miss after the last earnings report? That's what the interviewer said. CLSK sold off 15%. And Zach, I think, did a good job. In the end, any company, their whole goal is to bring earnings per share. Their goal is not to have massive revenue and then have super expensive costs to get that revenue for the rest of their time around, right? They are trying to build earnings per share. That's the whole point. So he said the goal is to get to $1 in earnings per share as quickly as possible. So that equates to 25 cents a quarter. He says that that's definitely something that they can do next year. So at this price, that means that they would be at about a 13 price to earnings ratio. He said typically companies that are growing as quickly as they are, they're around a 40 to 85x earnings per share. So he said, you can do the math on that. That would put us around $40 to $85. Now, he didn't say $40 to $85. He said, you can do the math on that, right? So he said, possibly we could see a $40 to $85 CleanSpark by next year. Now, the guy kind of read my mind, the interviewer, and he said, well, is that just for Bitcoin miners? Because it seems like they're valued differently, right? This is not some quickly growing software as a service company that's going to trade at 60, 70, 80x multiples necessarily. Yes, is this by conventional valuation, or is it similar to that for other Bitcoin miners? Like, is this Bitcoin mining adjusted? And he didn't really explain that. He just said that they are still undervalued compared to their peers. So I think that was probably a little bit of an exaggeration. Now, if they got up to $1 earnings per share, I could definitely see them around $40. The reason I say that is we've been at $40 before, and a 3x from here would put us kind of on pace with Riot and Mara. That's what they're already doing in terms of, or that's how much they already cost in terms of price to sales. So that would make sense because we still are only about 1/3 the price of those other companies, and they don't have quite the earnings, I believe, that we would have then. So I can understand that. That would make a lot of sense to me if we were around $40 next year. Now they asked, what are your thoughts on dilution? Now this is the other thing that he talked about that I think was right on. It was really important for us to hear as shareholders. What are your thoughts on dilution? Do you sell Bitcoin? Do you keep it? Or do you dilute? What do you do? Because obviously there are still miners that we have to pay for. We still want to grow because difficulty only goes up for Bitcoin mining. I mean, not necessarily only goes up because when China miners left, difficulty fell down. But over time, as Bitcoin's price goes up, the difficulty is going to go up. So you have to do something. He said there are 3 types of liquid assets that they really have an option to use: cash, Bitcoin, and stock. He said as one of the largest shareholders, his whole objective is to bring earnings per share up as high as possible. I forgot who exactly said it, but someone said, show me the incentive and I'll tell you the result, right? So as one of the biggest shareholders, his whole goal is to bring earnings per share up as much as possible. So goal is to hit $1 in earnings per share. It's all about the cost of capital. So he discussed dilution, but only if shares increase in price. He doesn't want to dilute when shares are really low. He brought up Riot and Mara and how they diluted when they were $3, $2 or $3, and they diluted a lot. Their shares are about 1/3 as many as Riot and Mara, like the amount of shares out there in circulation. So he was very cautious about wanting to dilute shares right now. He said he's willing to sell Bitcoin for operating costs rather than raise equity when they're at these low prices. He thinks, though, that there's going to be some blended cost of capital. He doesn't think that, hey, we're just going to dilute and have $100 million of cash. He said specifically that he does not want a lot of money. Maybe they'll just liquidate a little bit at a time when they need it, but they don't want to go out and dilute the market a lot because, again, earnings per share is per share. So they want to make the best decision for all the shareholders. Then they also said that they were willing to look at debt against hard assets such as miners and property. They're in talks with multiple groups now. I thought this was a little odd, though, because he only said this after he was prompted on a couple other questions. So he did not bring it up when they were talking about dilution because that is another option, right? Their other way of getting capital would be to get some debt instrument. And he said that he would be happy to do that as long as it makes sense and is a low cost of capital. He is very bullish on Bitcoin, by the way. He said that he would much rather sell 1 to 2 to 3 Bitcoin a day when they're mining 10 than sell a couple Bitcoin a day when they're only mining 2 or 3. So that makes sense. Also, they did talk about the other side of their business, which is the microgrids. He said that they expected to be cash flow positive in the next year on their energy business. He does not want this to weigh down their company. He wants them to be cash flow positive on the energy side of their business, on the Bitcoin mining side of their business. He thinks Bitcoin mining is really going to be the driver short term, which makes sense because that is a lot easier to increase. You can tell by just how many Bitcoin they're mining a day, 7 or 8 Bitcoin, we're looking at 8 or 9 by the end of the month. That's going to be bringing in a lot more than the energy side of their business. I mean, you're talking about nearly $500,000 a day. That's $180 million run rate. They're not going to do that on their business on the energy side anytime soon. So I think that this was overall a really good interview. He hit on a couple of the things that people were really worried about, which is, hey, management took a lot of money. So what the heck is going on with that? Now, he didn't directly talk about that, but he said, hey, I am one of the largest shareholders. My goal is to bring earnings per share up. And really, that wouldn't help bring earnings per share up unless he thought that the people were worth it and they were helping lead the team and lead the company to good things in the future. He specifically is aligned with our interests because he is one of the top shareholders. And then also they talked about dilution because they haven't paid for all the miners. They paid for a good amount of the miners that they already have in contracts. He mentioned that they are getting miners for a good cost. He's got like max limits in some of the contracts. He can't talk about how expensive they are specifically, I believe. That's what he said, that he can't disclose that, but he said that it was a good price that he was getting it at. So overall, I think this pretty much aligns with what we want, right? We want earnings per share because that will make people see that this is not just going to be a money-losing business forever. We have been ramping up so quickly that it has been a money-losing business, but as time goes on, we are going to bring in a lot of earnings. That's something to consider. I actually broke down something that I think is kind of interesting too, and this is just a fun exercise. If you guys want to do this, you can. Market cap right now is 473 million. Share price is 13.29. This is the shares outstanding. Now, this is not what I found like on the SEC or anything. I just did a simple calculation based on Google. Shares I own, about 500, 600. Let's just say something like that. I didn't actually calculate, but that means I own 0.0014% of the company. It's about 5, 6, 7, 8 grand, something like that. Bitcoin a day. If we get up to 10 Bitcoin a day by the end of the month, that means that each day I get about 0.00014 Bitcoin. Now that might not sound like a lot, and that's not a lot in terms of one specific number per day, but once you start multiplying that out by the year, Bitcoin per year is 0.05%. So that Bitcoin value at 50,000 is about $2,500. Now that starts to get a little bit more interesting when you think, okay, I'm basically paying $5,000 now to make $2,500 in value throughout the year. Now there are costs. There are costs that have to go into this. This is not $2,500 of profit. But if you thought about other businesses, okay, what if you could put $5,000 into something and it generated $2,600 worth of revenue, most of it being very high margin? Let's say it's even 50% hits the bottom line, which I think will be much higher than that as we ramp up Bitcoin production. That's still getting $1,250 worth of profit out of my $5,000 investment. Now, again, this is kind of simplified, but that is pretty good in my opinion. If I could put 25 grand and make, let's use easier numbers. Let's say I put 50 grand into something and I can make about 12,500 a year. That'd be awesome. And I still own that $50,000 because I can sell at any time. But that's kind of how it's breaking down now. That would be an awesome investment. Now, once you start looking, okay, what if Bitcoin's at 100,000? Now, of course, there's always going to be the fear that falls down in the future. That means that I am basically getting revenues that are similar to what I put into the stock as of now. Now, again, this is a little bit off too because we're at $13 or $14 a share now, so it might be like $7,000 of cost. But still, you can mess around with the numbers to whatever you like, and you can see that if this goes well, if they really do what they're saying they're going to do, and they're able to ramp up production, and we start actually getting earnings per share, it's going to be kind of interesting to see how this all plays out over the next year. I'm very bullish. Now, let me know your thoughts on this down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, this is not like I spent a ton of time on this, but you can mess around on your own time, seeing if this makes sense to you. I found it to be an interesting exercise because I started thinking, okay, what if I just put the $7,000 in Bitcoin where I get 5% interest or something? How much Bitcoin would that make me? And it is nowhere near 0.05 Bitcoin. Nowhere near it. But definitely let me know your thoughts on this underneath the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Thank you for hitting the like button and checking out the links down below to Voyager or to Patreon and over to Webull. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.